My name is Bill Atkinson. I'm president of Atkinson Strategic Communications, and I'm here today with Tom Dunlap, co-founder and managing partner at Dunlap Bennett and Ludwig, a Vienna, Virginia-based law firm specializing in GovCon, intellectual property, real estate, and business law. Tom, welcome to Citybiz.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about DBL. What's the sweet spot, and what sets it apart from other firms?
Sure. So and I don't know how much you know about the law firm landscape, but in the United States, there are roughly a million lawyers, a little bit less, 900 something thousand lawyers. And of those, more than half are in firms that are less than 5 lawyers, somewhere from 1 to 5 lawyers. So if you think about that, it's a lot of law going on in very, very small practices. And then interestingly, 23% of the law firms are 200 or more lawyers. So in this weird landscape in the middle, you have every other size of law firm, and we're in that weird landscape. We're an 80-ish lawyer firm. We in the world of small firms, we're huge, and in the world of big firms, which we're mostly competitive with, we're small. We're not quite boutique. We're not 10 lawyers or 12 lawyers, but and it's weird that you get to this point of counting heads. But that's part of our sweet spot is we're not huge, but really, I think what sets us apart. And we're veteran owned, and I've talked about that in the past in other articles, and I think there's some press on that. And we're great at what we do, but I think every law firm is going to say, we're great at what we do. We're great at government contracts and IP, and we've won a lot of cases, and we have, and that's all good stuff. But I think what's really sets us apart is that our internal firm ethos, and I know, again, this sounds weird, why do clients care, is that we want every lawyer who works for us to be happy. Because our thought is happy lawyers, right? It's the opposite of what you view in the law practice industry. But our thought and our ethos, the idea behind this is that happy lawyers make good lawyers. If you have people who aren't disaffected or unhappy with their life, they're going to be very good at what they do. And I found this to be true. And they're going to be really rational about how they deal with clients. So they're going to come up with not just legal solutions that make them money, but business solutions and things that are good for the client, as opposed to just being good law. It's a good law, but it's also going to be good for the client as a general matter.
All right. So you brought up the subject of happiness. How do you make sure your lawyers are happy?
Well, so it's hard, right? Because I've said this to other people. Managing a group of lawyers, I think I have 30 partners in the firm. It's like having a huge group of cats. They all want to, and you say herding cats. It's real. Every cat wants to be petted its own way. It wants its own cat food. It's a different kind of cat food. It's Tuesday, and today that cat doesn't want to sleep in this corner. They want to sleep in that corner. And it's really getting the cats to understand that a lot of the stuff they think they care about, they really don't care about. They don't really care about what color their desk is or what bonds paper we're buying. And so we try to take that out of the equation. I think that's a big piece of it. And then the other thing we try to do, and so they're just thinking about what they went to law school to do. And most lawyers don't get to do that. Most lawyers are trying to run a business, especially if they're small. And if they're at a big firm, they're trying to deal with politics and committees. So we try to remove the politics. And part of that is our compensation scheme and how we manage associates. Nobody owns an associate at our firm. It's a collective. It almost sounds like communism, which I'm not a fan of, just letting you know. But it's a collective, and everybody gets to share associate resources. And then we try to take the other piece of it out, hey, I've got to figure out the paper, the malpractice policy, or how to hire somebody or how to recruit someone. We have professional recruiting staff. We have a CEO. We have a chief marketing officer. We have a chief financial officer, and they're all professionals. None of them are lawyers. And this may shock you. They're all better at that job than a lawyer would be. So that's how we try to keep lawyers happy. We let them be lawyers. They get to do law, which they're really interested in the first place, and they get to deal with their clients they really find that they care about what their clients care about. If they don't have to worry about all this other junk, we try to clear their headspace.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is that unusual to have a CEO at a law firm?
It is pretty unusual. It's becoming more prevalent, and I would say more so at bigger firms. Part of it is economies of scale. If you're a 5-lawyer firm, you can't hire a CEO. You're going to have a bookkeeper, and you're going to outsource a lot of what you do. So you've got to be at some scale, and CEOs are expensive. So it is a cost center. You have to be at a firm that has a practice with a margin to be able to do that. And then you also have to be in a practice that understands the value of non-lawyers doing these things. And I don't know how much you or your listeners deal with lawyers in the business world. Probably not a lot. They probably deal with them as lawyers. But lawyers, it's kind of like lawyers buying airplanes or lawyers buying sailboats or lawyers running a business. It's the same thing. Nobody was trained in law school to run a business. And so the idea of a CEO, well, at first, we've acquired firms that have been around since the early 80s, and the partners are still here and have joined us. It was a hard concept to convey. But after 6 months or a year and buying into the idea, it becomes like in fact, we have interviews with lawyers at our firm who've been practicing since the 70s. We're like, this is the best thing that ever happened. Why did nobody ever do this? I don't have to worry about anything but coming into the office and doing law. It's so novel. So it grows on you, but a lot of lawyers have a hard time believing it at first. So
now the firm is also veteran owned or founded, and you're a vet. And you have 9 veterans working, military veterans working at the firm. What does that open any doors for you, for the company, for the law firm? And what does it mean?
Sure. Well, Bill, you did mention, part of our practice is government contracts. And a lot of that stems from the fact that we've got, Bennett was a JAG in the Army. He was a major. And, one of our patent litigators commanded, this is interesting, I didn't know exactly what he did. He commanded the sub hunters from, what was that Tom Clancy book? The
Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October. He commanded those sub hunters. That was his career before he became a lawyer, chasing them in the 80s up and down the Atlantic coast, just like playing those games with them. So interesting. And I was a cavalry officer. So yeah, there's some lawyer things that it opens. We have a bunch of former JAGs, Barney and Ellis and some others. But we also have military officers who did other things. Ray was a surface warfare guy. I was a cavalry infantry guy. So we have these backgrounds. So you think, oh, it opens government contracts because they were lawyers. But what it's really opened is a fair number of my personal client base and Ellis's or Ray's are military affiliated because we speak the same language or because we know the same things or we have shared experience. It's like anything with any client that you find. If you have shared experiences, you're going to connect with those people better.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there was an interesting case just recently involving Manta Group of Reston, and you won $213 million, or they won a $213 million U.S. Army contract, and you represented them. Tell us a little bit about that case and what made it unusual or exceptional.
Well, so, to be fair, Bill, like any small company that gets a $213 million contract, it's a big deal. That's a lot of employees, a lot of FTE slots that they get to fill. And obviously it means work for a bunch of folks. The problem, I think, and I won't dive too deeply here, we actually had a lawsuit over this a while back that we ended up dismissing, but in the government contract space, because there's something called a CICA stay, which is the Competition and Contracting Act, that allows, in most government contracts, not all, the person who loses an award can file something called a bid protest. And if they do it within 10 days under qualified contracts, they get an automatic stay of the award of the contract. So if they're the incumbent, there's no reason they shouldn't file a bid protest because it'll keep them on the contract past the date that they were awarded the contract for as long as, in this case, I think it was over a year and a half of extra contract time. And it's not that they have to have a valid reason to file the bid protest, but they can file multiple bid protests if they find something new. Oh, we found this T not crossed by the government. And that's the other problem. It's not always that the awardee made a mistake. The company that won, in this case, Manta Group, that won the award that made a mistake. Usually what you have to allege to be successful in a bid protest is that the government or the agency that's awarding the contract made a mistake. And in this case, they were wrong every single time, but the incumbent, the company that filed the bid protest in that Manta case, got to stay on that contract. So it's great. It's a big deal that they won the contract and they won the bid protest. They were an intervener, but really what happened is the government won and the government got to stick by its award to our client. Our client was an intervener in supporting the government. And I hate to say it this way, but but it's more like the other side lost more so than that we won, because we already had one. Manza Group had already won the contract.
Yeah, yeah. What are some other big cases that the firm has won and been involved in?
So I know one you and I talked about previously was the jump rope case, and that's not a case that we won. It's a case that's on appeal to the Supreme Court. That's sort of arcane for most folks, but it's legally interesting, and it really involves the conflict between what an Article I organization, a branch of the executive, remember from high school civics class, there are three branches of government, and in this case, there's a conflict between two of them. Article III judges are appointed for life, and generally, as you would expect, as we all remember, judges have the right to make decisions about law. And if there's going to be a taking, if you're going to lose property, if somebody's going to take, and patents are property, your patent is a 20-year monopoly in the United States if you have a granted patent. If somebody's going to take that away from you, you're entitled to some due process, something you get to go through in an adversarial process in an Article III court. But the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, through the Patent Trial and Appeals Board, can revoke that patent even if you have a pending Article III case on the same subject matter. Or can it? I mean, that's one of the big questions that's involved in this case. So the case is exciting. It's not one that we specifically have won, but I thought I'd bring that up because it's been in the news. It's been in the law news. We did win the water balloons case a couple years ago. I tried that case as lead counsel. It involved that was exciting because everybody knows what it is. You screw balloons onto a hose, and every time I try, what are you doing for the last 2 years? I've been working on this trial with water balloons. Screw it on the end of a hose, and it fills up like 50 balloons, and they self-tie. And it was like fantastic. And so you have to clean the balloon bits out of your yard. But what a fantastic product. It's the number one toy for like 5 years. So it was a big dollar value product. And we ended up getting a jury verdict that was enhanced by the judge. I think it was over $30 million. We won our attorney's fees in that case too. So that was a pretty big case and got a lot of press because it was against the as seen on TV folks, Telebrands. And our client was a toy maker, a smaller toy maker owned by some New Zealand folks.
Yeah, and the balloon maker, that was Bunch O Balloons. That was the company.
It was. So Bunch of Balloons, the inventor, Josh Malone, who's also part of US and Inventor and part of this big patent movement, really great group, was the inventor of the balloons and the owner, but the toy manufacturer was our client, and they were the ones that were Zuru, the toy company, was prosecuting the litigation. And the inventor, Bunch of Balloons, was with us in prosecuting it, moving the litigation forward.
All right. Now, your background is, you're not like, I wouldn't call you really a typical lawyer. You have your military service, 9 years there, cavalry officer. And so if you look at the military, what's the biggest thing that it taught you?
Okay. So I think the most important thing I pulled away from the military was that nothing that's worth having is easy. So things that are worth having are hard. And I internalized that while I was in the military. And I honestly think that if you could put every executive or every leader through something like small unit leadership or OCS, or what they call now BOLIC, which didn't exist when I was an officer, but I was a combat arms officer. So we all went through the equivalent of BOLIC at our officer basic. But now every Army officer goes through this BOLIC course. I think it would be massively beneficial to every company on earth. Just the internalizing how important it is to not do the easy thing, but to do the right thing and to do it the right way, and why that's important. And you read it in self-help books, you'll read it in business, whatever, MBA and pocket MBA books. You can't read something and know it. You've got to sleep in the mud. You've got to, smell cordite when you shoot your gun. You have to hump a ruck, 20 miles with a full load of ammo and water to internalize something like that. You have to have time to dwell on it in physical pain. Yeah. I don't know if we should set that program up, but probably be hard to get people to sign up. But it's effective.
Yeah. Well, you might be successful. I think that could be a side business. Now, Let's talk about Ceres Nanoscience. You're chairman of that company. Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, I was. So I founded the company with two other scientists, two main scientists, and then two helper scientists in 2007. And I was the founder and CEO, chairman of the board, president, and I raised the money. And I ended up hiring my brother, who is now the president of the company and CEO, and he has been for the last 10 years, done a great job. We took a venture capital round in 2017, and that VC round, as part of that, I remain a significant shareholder, and the patents that we rely on in Series now for our biggest products, which are the wastewater detection for COVID that we do for the federal government, we do for private industry, or the company does, are still good things. And I'm still, I think, the largest individual shareholder, but I'm off the board now because that's how the VC game works. We got to put two on, they got to put two on, and we have a neutral, and that's, kind of how that works in that world. But we got some good money, we grew, and now we just did a very big investment deal with Streck, which is a large, fairly large biopharma bio company in the Midwest.
How much did you raise in that VC round?
So a private equity round that I did myself was $3.5 million, and then the VC round was $9 million. And then we probably have non-dilutive grants from NIH, Virginia, and we did some SBIR, some government contracts, probably on the order of 20 or 30 million of cash for those. And we have products that we've been selling all along. So biomarker discovery toolkits, the Lyme disease detection kit, which we've sold forever, doesn't make a lot of money. And we sell a product that goes with a mass spectrometer that allows enhanced sample analysis. I'm getting too technical. Point is, it has some income. It's gotten a lot of grants from government agencies. Gates Foundation gave us a large grant for malaria, but now it's got a second round of co-investment from Streck, and it's in the news how much that is. I think it's $10 or $12 million co-investment from Streck. So they bought some shares.
So you're a unicorn, though. You're a lawyer, but you're actually a business person.
I try. I told you earlier, the firm's professionally managed. I went back to school while I was a lawyer and got my MBA. And in MBAs, the last part of your MBA is always these group projects. Anyone who has an MBA will roll their eyes with me, because two of you on a 4-person group project will do something and the other 2 people will ride you and just get the grade. But nobody cared what project we picked because I was employed full-time and the other folks weren't. So they were all about law firms. They're all about, how do you manage a law firm? What's wrong with law firm compensation? What consumer sensitivity is there in practice areas? What are the most profitable practice areas? Those were all my MBA, end of my MBA projects. And that's what transitioned me into realizing that lawyers running law firms is probably the worst business model you could possibly come up with. And yet it's the most prevalent business model that exists. So that's, I personally set about trying to change that as part of our firm.
So okay, biotech, law, and also the film industry. Do you work with Hollywood or entertainment law?
So we represented as lawyers, a lot of independent filmmakers, film studios. We obviously have some clients that are artists, and we have a sprinkling of other things. For the most part, my personal work was with independent film studios, whether that was production side, helping them with the capital, or helping them with SAG, Screen Actors Guild contracts, or requirements for filming, or IP, or copyright. We also did a lot of copyright litigation. I think we were the first mass copyright litigation firm in the country. And we picked up a lot of notoriety. I signed a film called Hurt Locker in the early part of the year. And I think it was 2010 or 11. And then later that year, it won the Academy Award for Best Picture. So we got really lucky with that, because we got a lot of press, because I had gotten Daniel, who's Daniel Charte, who's the owner of Voltage, that produced Hurt Locker, to sign up with us. And we did a lot of litigation around that film to recover funds. So yeah, I've done a fair amount. I've spoken at Sundance Film Festival 7 years running. And then during COVID, we kind of dropped that, but I did that for a long time for AMC Network's panel on independent film. So a little bit.
Yeah. And I think you were associate producer and script editor.
I did a film with Uwe Boll, and I don't know, most people don't know who that is. He's well known for taking movies that are taking video games and turning them into movies, like Far Cry and a lot of zombie movies. He did German Fried Movie. He's done some more important work recently, like Darfur was a big one that he got a lot of critical acclaim for. I rewrote his script for Assault on Wall Street and helped him get that film up and running. And I think Assault on Wall Street did pretty well. Again, it wasn't a major motion picture, it's an independent film, but it got some critical nods. But again, most people probably haven't heard of it or heard of Uwe or have seen the movie. He's a German filmmaker who makes movies in English for the most part, with a lot of German actors. It's kind of an interesting combination.
Yeah. All right. So what do you do for fun? I know you were a kickboxer for a while, national silver medalist.
Long time ago. I run. I did tries, Olympic tries, half Ironman distances. I run a few marathons every year. I like to sail. I fly airplanes for fun, stuff like that.
Airplanes, are these prop planes or?
Yeah, so I owned a Cirrus, which is a pretty nice plane for about 9 years, and was on the airport commission there. If you ever fly into Leesburg in that approach, I helped the FAA design that instrument approach because I was the commission anyway. But yeah. So I like flying. I'm a master diver, love scuba diving when I get a chance. Not at the same time as flying because there's a whole pressure thing, but yeah. So all that kind of stuff. What most people do, I like cocktails, I like hanging out. Probably like you.
Yeah, that all sounds good. So what's next? What's next for the firm and you?
Yeah, so we're going to continue around this whole ethos of making happy lawyers doing better law because we're happier partly and because we have better processes. We're going to continue our growth trajectory. We're talking about expansion into some foreign countries in a bigger way in the next year. We just opened, or I don't know if we've opened it yet. We have already signed with a partner in Seattle, so we'll have a Seattle office open soon. And we just hope to continue that growth pattern and our mission of trying to make lawyers who do what we do happy in what they're doing and better at what they're doing.
All right. Well, that sounds great, Tom. Thank you for joining us at Citybiz, and sure. I look forward to talking to you more.
All right. Thanks.